Welcome everyone to our new webinar describing our challenge on efficient building. Today we're again with Mechelen and Dimitri will describe you a bit more this challenge with his colleagues. Dimitri, it's your turn.
Good morning everyone and welcome to the next Sci-Fi webinar. This webinar will talk a bit about the challenge from the city of Mechelen about making residential buildings more energy efficient. We'll start with a little bit of context of what the Sci-Fi project is, what the open call is all about, and then my colleague Igor will talk a bit more in depth about the challenge itself. So what is Sci-Fi? Sci-Fi is a European project and it aims at developing smart city solutions for mid-sized cities. We try to do that by launching 2 calls into the market to develop these solutions. And the first one of these calls has been launched on July the 2nd. There is a few webinars that are being organized. There has been already a general webinar regarding the technical information about the call, some administrative guidelines, etc. You can find that on our YouTube channel, and the link is there as well. This webinar specifically is about one specific challenge, being the energy efficiency of residential buildings. Normally, the webinar will take about 40 minutes, which will be 25 to 30 minutes of presentation, and then there's room for questions and answers, and so probably will end up by 11:45. If you have a question, do not hesitate to ask it into the YouTube chat, and we'll answer it after we finish the presentation. What is Sci-Fi? Sci-Fi is a consortium of 8 partners from the 4 countries in the 2 Seas region, being the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and the UK. We have a few cities as partners, but also a few business network partners and a few knowledge institutions, so a mixed network. What we do in the project is we launch an accelerator for mid-sized cities and businesses to create practical and sustainable solutions for city challenges. So the program is really aiming to help both the cities and the businesses to develop good smart city solutions. The project is funded by the Interreg 2 Seas program. And as I said earlier, there will be 2 open calls. The first one is now, the next one will be in 2019. So this open call has been opened on July the 2nd. It's open for 3 months, so it closes on October the 2nd. So you still have about a month to apply. And we launched in that open call 7 different challenges in the domains of energy, environment, and mobility. There is an online application process. So if you go to our website, you will find an application form, and there you can enter some information on the solution that you're offering, and you have to provide some information regarding budget, business plan, etc. After the call closes, there will be a review period and a selection process, and one of the steps within that selection process will be a remote interview with the shortlisted companies. After some companies has been selected for each of the challenges, we go into an experimentation period of 6 months, where we sit together with the companies and co-develop the solution to the given challenge. Within the open call for the experimentation process period, we can provide up to 10,000 euros of financing. I will explain later how we can fund that. So what does the timeline for the process look like? We had a preparation phase for 6 months. The challenges has been opened on the 2nd of July. We opened it for 3 months, so it closes on the 2nd of October. Then the selection process starts. That will take 3 months as well. And so roughly at the 17th of January 2019, we can start the experimentation process, and then 6 months later, in June 2019, we can all celebrate the good solution that has been developed. What can we offer to you as a company if you have a good solution for us? we provide up to 10,000 euros to support the development of the pilot or the proof of concept or the minimum viable product, however you want to call it, depending on what you're really offering as a solution. And we also provide the opportunity that successful pilots or successful products might be implemented as a full solution, either in the city where you developed your pilot or in another city, and that other city might be one of the cities of the consortium, but there's also every city within the consortium also has a broad network of neighboring cities that have already expressed their interest in the challenges that we developed. So there might be a wide attention for your developed solution. So in the 6 months experimentation period, we will develop the solution, the pilot, as a co-creation process. So we expect you to come into close contact with the stakeholders of the cities so that the solution that we're developing together perfectly suits the challenges that are living in the city. During that 6 months period, the businesses will also enjoy training, advice, support, both from the business network partners within the project and the knowledge institutions, so they can help you regarding legal support, administration, promotion, etc. So don't hesitate to call on that as well. And as I said, all of the partners within the project have a broad network themselves. The SciFi network is already quite big, so you get a large dissemination opportunity amongst peers, amongst the cities, to make sure that your solution gets spread throughout the market. As of that, we offer you a good introduction to different cities in the European region, investors and mentors that can help you grow as a business. If you want to develop a solution that requires extra hardware to be installed, like sensors or antennas, etc., that can also be arranged. So the cities have a budget as well to purchase those extra hardware, so you don't have to worry about that. You get access to that, and of course, you also get access to the data of the cities to help you develop the solution. So 10,000 euros, what can you use that money for? Well, basically, it's for developing a prototype of your solution. We don't expect to have a full working implemented solution throughout the whole city for that budget. And so it's the 10,000 euros is for the prototype, the proof of concept that you will develop. Later on, if we go to a full implementation, there will be extra budget available. What can you fund with that budget? It can be all types of costs. It can be salaries for your employees, travel costs, consumables, subcontracting, if you need some advice for marketing, training, legal advice, and all other indirect expenses. If you provide us with your budget can be higher than 10,000 euros, but we can only fund 10,000 euros. So the rest needs to be funded by yourself. If you have a budget that's lower than 10,000 euros, we will finance just the amount you need. And as I said earlier, if your prototype requires some hardware to be purchased, like sensors, etc., that can be outside of the 10,000 euros. So that will be purchased separately by the city. Who can apply? Basically, anybody with a legal entity can apply to the challenge. So that's both startups, students that have access to some sort of legal entity throughout the university or high school, etc., and basically all other companies, big and small, that can have a smart city solution for our challenges. You have to be established in one of the EU 28 countries or one of the associated countries for the Horizon 2020 program. However, we do only allow single entities, so no consortia of different companies. And it's important, if you're a student or a startup, you don't need to be registered right now, but you have to be incorporated when we sign the contract, will be roughly by the end of December of this year. If you want some more information on the application process and all administration, etc., you can go to our website. There's a guide of applicants there, and you find the link here. It's smartcityinnovation.eu/apply. I will now give the word to my colleague Igor, who works in our department for sustainable development, and he will talk a bit more about the challenge itself.
Thank you, Dimitri, and good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Igor van der Wever. I work in the sustainable department of the city of Mechelen, and today I have the honor to present the Sci-Fi challenge on energy efficient buildings. My expertise is energy performance and deep renovation of residential buildings. The city of Mechelen is located in the region of Flanders, Belgium. It's the fifth city in the region with approximately 86,000 inhabitants, and which corresponds with 36,000 households. The ambition of the city is to become climate neutral, and which corresponds with a 20% greenhouse gas emissions reductions by 2020. And the city has done several actions towards this goal. So in 2012, we signed a Covenant of Mayors, and we composed a Sustainable Energy Action Plan in 2013. And shortly thereafter, we launched the campaign Mechelen Climate Neutral, which actually is our trademark towards the citizen. So, which brings us to our main challenge of today. So the building stock, the residential building stock in Mechelen is quite old, and therefore generally they have a very poor energy performance. Thus renovation has an important energy savings or carbon emission potential. Now, in order to really tackle this challenge, we might have to move from an individual approach to a collective approach to really accelerate the renovation challenge. So the key challenge of today is how can cities accelerate the energy retrofitting and or stimulate collective renovations in older residential buildings. Let me elaborate a bit more on this. So thanks to the support of a number of EU projects, the city managed to develop a home renovation service. So we support homeowners in their journey towards energy efficient and more comfortable homes. And so the challenge here is to upscale this service, so we can better serve not only individuals but also groups of homeowners. And there are a number of options which I will present to you. So depending on the step of in this journey, we can have several options for it. So in terms of the first step, of course, is awareness raising and a general campaign towards the need for energy retrofitting. And we already have a number of tools in place, like the website, a newsletter, and an online game, really to engage citizens. But the challenge is to reach specific communities, because there are a number of target groups with the most potential, which are difficult to reach with these common tools, such as tenants or elderly or target groups with low income. So this is one. This could be one part of the challenge. Furthermore, we have developed a tailored renovation advice service. So we are experimenting with pop-ups and consultancy centers, and also offer a renovation service at home. So people can also use an online calculation tool. But in order to reach more people, it might be useful to not approach individuals, but approach whole neighborhoods or whole communities. And the challenge here is how can data help us to select high potential districts? And another challenge is the fact that, of course, the best advice is from for citizens is still from people they know. So how can we stimulate the peer-to-peer interactions that that people exchange their positive journey or positive stories and information with each other, and in this way stimulate people to renovate their home. Another very important part of the journey is, of course, financing and realize your renovation. So we facilitate a number of collective actions, such as group purchases and support for collective renovation projects, for example, with 10 or more households. And once again, here's a question: how can data steer these actions, and how can data and technologies make this process even more easier and more effective? So what you see on the slide is also a thermographical map with the roofs of our territory in Mechelen. So this can provide us data to and form the basis for group purchases on roof insulation or renovation projects on roof insulation. So this is an example, but of course there are other opportunities for it. Talking about data, then of course the question is, if we do this renovation, is it effective? So monitoring could be a very monitoring could give this information, and of course we have on a city scale we have a dashboard where we actually follow up our ambition towards climate neutral city. So on a city scale we have data on carbon emissions of building and energy consumption. Also on a building scale, we are experimenting with using home energy monitoring systems for households, and later on a medium to long term, we will roll out digital meters in the Flanders region. But the challenge here is to use the scale in between. So how can we visualize the data on a district scale, for example, that people can also compare their energy consumption with the average of the neighborhood, or that we, from another perspective, that we can identify high potential neighborhoods based on their energy consumption or in that neighborhood. So so we have a number of platforms and tools to support this challenge. And then lastly, so sharing your best practices, of course, is a way to engage other homeowners, and together you're stronger than you're stronger as a group. So creating a community can be very important in order to convince people to start their journey to a renovation or to help people to finish this journey. So with Mechelen, we have a number of, we have, of course, our social media channels, and we also have social media communities really for certain neighborhoods. So coupling this with our collective actions might be a very might have a lot of potential. Summarized, the expected outcome. Well, we have a number of options here. So to tackle the renovation challenge of energy efficient buildings, so the outcome could be an awareness raising app or tool to reach specific communities. Or a support tool to select high potential districts or typologies powered by data of building characteristics and energy consumption. A data platform, a tool on our business model to really support collective renovation actions is another option. Or a data gathering tool to visualize energy consumption data or building or renovation activity data on a district level. So, of course, this data gathering tool could be top-down using data sources from the city or from other data providers, or could be made bottom-up using crowdsourcing or bottom-up initiatives. And lastly, a community engagement tool to really create communities and to stimulate sharing experiences amongst each other. So the expected impact, of course, is that the average energy efficiency of residential buildings is increased, that energy cost for inhabitants decreases, and that we have more comfortable homes with a better indoor quality, for example, and that we raise the renewable energy production, and that and with this contribute to the Covenant of Mayors targets. So there are a number of data platforms available that can be used. So of course we have information from the cadastre with ownership, age of buildings, and other building characteristics, but on city scale. We have data from the distribution service provider on the solar panels installed in a city, electricity use and gas consumption on a street scale. We have also an online platform free for citizens where they can track their monthly energy consumption and eventually power it with automatically with information from smart meters. An API to give access to this data is also possible. We have this thermographic map I showed you earlier on slide, and of course on the regional level we have a map with a potential for solar energy on the roofs on a city scale. And lastly, energy performance data and premiums on street scale are available as well. So all of this data is available on the data portal of the SciFi project. So thank you for your attention, and I will give Dimitri the floor again.
Yes, thank you, Igor. So if you want more information on the challenge or you want to apply, we hope so, you can find all information on our website, which is smartcityinnovation.eu. There's also a frequently asked question section there. So maybe all your questions are already solved when reading that one. If not, you can always email us at hello@smartcityinnovation.eu. Please also be sure to follow us on Twitter for any news and updates at Smart City Innov. And of course, all of our partners are very regular visitors of all events and fairs throughout Europe, so you can meet us there. So we're ready for questions now. So if you want to ask anything was unclear, please ask.
Thank you. We don't have any questions yet, but they might come in the next few seconds. Dimitri, is there anything else you want to say about this challenge specifically compared to the one we described yesterday, the other webinar, while people are typing their questions?
I think the most important challenge that we're facing here is, for instance, how to reach the more difficult focus groups, like the tenants, where you have the difference between the people living in the houses and the owners of the houses. They're not the same person, so the costs and the benefits do not go to the same person. So that's an important challenge. And for the rest, I think it was general challenges are well described within the presentation. So getting that community feel, making sure that there's enough peer-to-peer interaction, that's also important.
Okay, thank you, Dimitri. We do not have any questions. I'm sure it's because everything was very clear.
Of course.
So I think we will just close the webinar now, and I'll be in contact with people who have connected to the webinar. So if they have any questions, they can send it directly to us via email. Is that okay? Is there anything else you want to add?
No, just want to thank everybody for their attention, and we'll hopefully see your applications coming in.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day. And we'll see you at 1 for our next webinar. Bye-bye.